Have you ever seen a leader walk into a room full of tough questions, and instead of backing down, completely flip the narrative? Because that's exactly what happened today. MarkCarney just faced one of the most intense press conferences of his career, and what he revealed might actually change how Canada negotiates on the global stage. But here's the real question: did he just quietly signal Canada's entire strategy moving forward? Let's break it down. Today's press conference wasn't just another routine political update. It quickly turned into a high-pressure moment as reporters pressed MarkCarney on some of the most critical issues facing Canada right now: Donald Trump, ongoing trade negotiations, tensions with Alberta, and the future of Canada's economy. And let's be honest, this wasn't an easy situation. Just days earlier, US Ambassador Pete Hoekstra made headlines by claiming that Canada was nowhere close to reaching a trade agreement with Washington. That statement alone set the tone. So when Carney stepped up to the podium, everyone was waiting. Would he push back? Would he dodge? Or would he reveal something bigger? Instead of backing away, Carney delivered one clear, unmistakable message. Canada is not negotiating from a position of weakness. And more importantly, it will not accept a bad deal. Let that sink in. Because in a political environment where pressure tactics, tariffs, and aggressive rhetoric have become the norm, this was a direct signal, not just to Canadians, but to Washington as well.
Ambassador Hoekstra told CTV News on Tuesday that Canada and the U.S. aren't, quote, anywhere close in terms of a deal. You just spoke with the president yesterday. Do you agree?
What I have seen with the president is that you're not close to make a deal and then you make a deal. I've seen that in different cases. It doesn't mean the deals are good deals, but it means being prepared, having done the work, knowing what you want. So both things can be true.
The ambassador also said he believed that the next steps would really be at the president and prime ministerial level. I'm wondering if you agree with that. And also, I mean, you spoke a lot about your call being about the Middle East. How much did CUSMA play a role in your call?
We didn't discuss CUSMA yesterday. Look, ultimately, a breakthrough, if you will, on this will be at that level. We operate a little differently. We're very team oriented here in Canada, so it matters. Madame Charette, Monsieur Dominic LeBlanc, Ambassador Wiseman, the provincial premiers feeding in, the advisory council that we have, discussions with a broad range of stakeholders. All of that feeds into our preparations for this, knowing what we want and what we don't. There'll come a point. There'll likely come a point where that possibility emerges. We also judge the possibility. I mean, we could sign a bad deal this afternoon, right? We could have signed a bad deal a year ago. We're not going to sign a bad deal. So it has to be a real deal.
The very next question revealed something bigger, something that hasn't been talked about enough. For months, Donald Trump has been projecting a very specific narrative. Canada isn't a priority. At least, that's what it looks like on the surface. Through tariffs, trade threats, and tough public statements, the message has been consistent: apply pressure, dominate the conversation, and control the narrative. But behind the scenes, something very different is happening. Because when it comes to the issues that actually matter, trade agreements, NATO commitments, Arctic security, and the future of North American cooperation, Trump isn't ignoring Canada. He's on the phone with MarkCarney. Think about that. If Canada truly wasn't important, those calls wouldn't be happening. And that tells us everything. It reveals that despite the public rhetoric, Canada remains a key player in global decision-making. And even more importantly, it highlights Carney's growing influence on the international stage. But what really stood out wasn't just the fact that those conversations are happening. It was how Carney responded to all of it. No drama. No political theatre. No attempts to escalate tension for headlines. Instead, he stayed calm, focused, and deliberate. And in doing so, he delivered a subtle but powerful message. Canada will engage, but it will do so on its own terms. Confidently. Strategically. And without compromising its national interests.
Mr. Prime Minister, how would you characterize your discussion with Donald Trump in advance of the NATO talks? And is the U.S. finally getting the sense that we're increasing our defense spending, or do they still see us as a free rider?
Well, first, the president called me yesterday. We had a long discussion with him and at times some of his senior officials, Secretary Hoekstra and his commander-in-chief, on a range of issues, some related to NATO, some related to the situation in Iran and the broader Middle East. Both current and structural issues. Is very constructive conversation. There's things we're working on together. I think those are best left till they come to fruition. It's let's be clear. Canada is pulling its weight now in NATO. There's more to do, without question, but we have moved to meet the 2% target, as you know. We already meet the 1.5% target for defense resilience, defense industrial. We have a track to getting overall 4% by the end of this decade. We have some major procurement decisions. We just made one on Global Eye surveillance. We have others coming up. Submarines is an obvious one. And we're building out our infrastructure in the Arctic, assuming full sovereignty in all senses of the word in the Arctic, and very importantly, working with other NATO allies in a more detailed cooperation. Is one of the things I raised yesterday. So with the Nordics, with the UK, with France, with Germany, in terms of the overall Arctic security. So to protect the Arctic, you need to protect the Baltics and on up. So I think what we answer first, we answer to Canadians and protecting Canadians. We answer to our allies in terms of fulfilling our roles and protecting our allies. And I'll just end with this, which is that, and give you your follow-up, we are at the front lines in Latvia with Operation Reassurance, and we are one of the most important contributors to support of Ukraine, including security guarantees for Ukraine.
From Washington to Alberta. And this is where things got personal. With ongoing discussions around separation and growing regional frustration, Carney was asked a direct question. What is your message to Albertans? Now this could have easily turned into a political response. A rehearsed answer. A deflection. But it didn't. Instead, Carney approached it from a different angle. A more human one. He emphasized unity. He stressed that Canada is stronger together. And more importantly, he made it clear that this is not the time for uncertainty. Because according to Carney, the opportunities ahead for Canada are too significant to risk division right now. That's a powerful statement. Especially in a moment where emotions are high and the future feels uncertain for many.
On the question of Alberta separation, we've heard that dozens of your MPs are going to be going to the Calgary Stampede this summer in advance of the referendum out there. I'm wondering if you're planning on going, but also how much time do you plan on spending in Alberta this summer talking about the separation question, and what's your message going to be? Yeah,
well, I'm always happy to go back to my home province, and I will be going to the Stampede, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'll be there, Look, I've probably been there 6 times in the last year, give or take, and would expect to be there several times, just normal course. Obviously, we're doing a lot more with Alberta. I'm not always in Alberta. I talked to Premier Smith 2 days ago. She was in Alberta. I wasn't, but it was about Alberta. Look, I think what's the core message? First is Canada's worth fighting for. I mean, this is the greatest country in the world. We're not perfect. We can get better, but Canada's worth fighting for, and standing up for Canada and supporting Canada is important. Motivation is always an issue in any vote referendum. Secondly, that we're stronger together. This is a real referendum. It's not question about a question, free option. It's a dangerous bluff. We're literally at 10 years anniversary of Brexit, and I saw firsthand what gets sold in these referenda, that everything's going to be easy. That you can keep your passport, you can keep the currency, you can stay in the country and leave it at the same time. You get all the benefits, but none of it. And you see what's happened in the United Kingdom. It's very reminiscent. At a minimum, it's years of uncertainty before the subsequent question comes, right at a time the world is fundamentally uncertain, right at a time Alberta and Canada Quebec, Ontario, the territories, the whole country are moving to the forefront right at the time when we're seen as one of the most trustworthy, reliable, desirable countries to do business with, and we shouldn't mess that up.
Because the next topic might be the one that affects people the most. The economy. And this is where things became even more critical. Because let's face it, there's a growing narrative out there that Canada is falling behind, that the economy is struggling, that confidence is slipping. But Carney pushed back. Directly. He pointed to investment, to job growth, to increasing international confidence in Canada's economy. Now, whether everyone agrees with that assessment or not, that's a different conversation. But one thing is absolutely clear. This is the vision his government wants Canadians to focus on. A narrative of growth, of stability, of long-term opportunity. And that's exactly what he reinforced today.
Canada is now creating jobs at twice the rate of the United States. Our business investments are growing in machinery and equipment at double-digit rates. Non-U.S. exports are up sharply, and we're on track to double them over the next decade. Foreign direct investment in Canada is at its highest level in 2 decades, running at twice the rate of our nearest G7 peer. And we now rank as the most attractive country in the world for infrastructure investment. We have the right plan, we're on track, but there's much, much more to do. And we have always recognized that some of the biggest payoffs from that plan will take time. That's why our government has been giving Canadians a boost today and a bridge to tomorrow. Our first act as new government was to cut income taxes for 22 million middle-class Canadians. Our first initiative this calendar year was to introduce the Canada Groceries and Essential Benefits for 12 million Canadians, meaning up to $1,890 for a family of 4. The first action we took as a majority government was to suspend the federal fuel excise tax, saving Canadians up to 10 cents a litre at the pump until Labor Day. We've cut taxes on homes, incomes, and investment, all while protecting the vital social programs that Canadians rely on every day, including childcare, pharmacare, and dental care. We've just launched a new national food security strategy to spur more competition for your hard-earned dollar, to produce more food at home, and to lower grocery bills. We're giving the Competition Bureau more resources to get Canadians a fair deal at the checkout counter. We're cracking down on surveillance pricing by protecting your privacy.
Because if you look at it closely, this wasn't just a press conference. It was something much bigger. It was a statement. A signal. A message about where this government believes Canada is heading. On trade with the United States. On national unity. On economic direction. Across every major issue, Carney stayed consistent. Canada will not be pressured into decisions that don't serve its long-term interests. That's the takeaway. But for now, one thing is hard to ignore. MarkCarney believes Canada's strongest days are still ahead. And today's press conference showed a leader who isn't just reacting to events, but trying to shape them. So what do you think? Is Canada truly negotiating from a position of strength? Or is there more happening behind the scenes than we are being told? And how do you see this playing out with the United States? Let me know your thoughts below, because this conversation is just getting started. If you enjoyed today's deep dive and want more in-depth coverage of Canadian politics, MarkCarney, Canada-US relations, and the biggest stories shaping the country's future, make sure to subscribe. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.